The fare for the upcoming concert, our season finale, is the Third Symphony of Johannes Brahms and the complete ballet score, The Three-Cornered Hat by Manuel de Falla. It's funny how strength and grandeur will almost inevitably dwarf poetry. I'm thinking of Beethoven's Fourth Symphony, which to me is the loveliest that he wrote, which is done, but not nearly with the frequency as the Eroica, the third, or the famous C minor, the fifth. And a lot of people have commented on the fact that you've got this granitic edifice in the Eroica and the struggle from dark to light of the fifth, and in between them this delicate gossamer Fourth Symphony. But to me that endears it to me the more. And similarly, the Third Symphony of Brahms, he only wrote 4, is very much like Beethoven's Fourth in that way. The C minor symphony, Brahms's first, is a dark to light. The second is like a hyper-pastoral symphony, very, very high on spirits. The Fourth Symphony is like a clenched fist saying goodbye to the world in E minor. And then in the middle of all that, you have this much more stately, understated Third Symphony. Which is not to say that there aren't struggles, which is not to say that there isn't a lot of passion, as there has to be in Brahms, but there's something about its loveliness, its perfection, its intimacy that endears it to me the more. This is the first time that I've had a chance to conduct the third, and I must say that over the course of the last several weeks of rehearsing and months of study, it has wormed its way into my heart, and now if pressed to the mat, I would probably have to say that it's currently my favorite of the 4. But ask me next time I conduct one of the others, and you'll probably have me tell you that it's that one. Manuel de Falla's ballet, The Three-Cornered Hat, exists also in an earlier version. It was more of a pantomime than a ballet. It was called The Corregidor and the Miller's Wife. Same story about a lustful magistrate who gets the hots for the miller's wife, and by the end of it he's made a total fool of, sorry about the bad sentence structure, and is sent packing. And Sergei Diaghilev, the impresario who was responsible for some of the greatest ballet scores of the 20th century, Daphnis and Chloe, Firebird, Petrushka, Rite of Spring, Pulcinella, Jeu, saw in this modestly scaled pantomime a chance to do something on a bigger scale. And so he urged de Falla to rethink it as a piece for a much more grand orchestra. And so when Falla set about writing this piece, he took his earlier version as a model, but greatly expanded it and did some really amazing orchestrational things with it. One of the minor miracles is that the fanfare that opens the ballet was virtually written overnight. The ballet was originally going to start with what we know as Part 1. Etc. But whether it was Diaghilev's decision or whether he got a little pressure from Pablo Picasso, they decided that they needed a little extra time for the audience to savor Pablo Picasso's curtain that was painted specially for this production. So de Falla came up with an opening fanfare for drums, trumpets, horns, castanets, and in something that they love to do, the orchestra members who aren't busy playing castanets actually get to clap their hands and shout, "Ole!" ushering in a very passionate soprano solo. But then we start the ballet music proper, and the ballet in many ways analyzes like a Wagnerian opera. We have several themes and motifs that indicate different things. Every time you hear this, it's an expression of the love of the miller and his wife. We have a very pompous, very bland theme for the corregidor. And as you'll hear in the course of the ballet, that theme, everything happens to it according to what's happening to the corregidor, including Defaya virtually thumbs his nose at the corregidor at one point by trashing his theme and effectively going neener, neener, neener to it. There are a couple of wonderful musical jokes in the Three-Cornered Hat. There are a couple of quotations. The most famous one is in part 2, where the miller and his wife think that they're rid of the nasty corregidor forever. They're having a party for all of their friends. Everybody's dancing, and the miller dances a very flashy dance. And suddenly, in the height of all the festivities, there's a knock at the door. And how is this knock at the door signaled? The horns go. And it's the henchmen of the corregidor who have come to arrest the miller on a trumped-up charge just to get him out of the way so that the corregidor can make one more play for the miller's wife. But there are several others that are a little more subtle. At one point, a little later on in the ballet, when the corregidor makes another play for the miller's wife, he accidentally falls off the bridge into the stream. And at that point, if you almost can't hear it. You almost have to look at it and pick these pieces out. But there's a very subtle allusion to Debussy's La Mer. The corregidor falls in the water, an allusion to Debussy's piece about the sea. And I'm sure that Faya had a good time sharing this with Debussy, who was a good friend. There's also a passing reference to the Barber of Seville at the beginning of the scene where the miller's wife is flirting with the corregidor and leading him on with a bunch of grapes. And suddenly hear the horn go. Unmistakable. But the one that you don't usually get in the full-scale ballet is another very funny quote. And let me set this up by telling you there's another recurring motif in the ballet. It's just an ascending scale. I mean, this comes all through the ballet, usually to push the action along. And in the original version, there was a point where the orchestra came to a cadence, and then there was a flute cadenza, and then they went into the next section. But in that space, in the full orchestral version, there was this flute cadenza, and I'm doing something I rarely do. I'm reinstating it, because it, after all, did come from Defaya himself. It's not my own conceit. And it really is, I think, the most marvelous of all the jokes. So what happens is the orchestra comes to a full stop, and the solo flute starts to do a version of the slow introduction to the last movement of Beethoven's First Symphony, Vis. And then the orchestra comes in. So what could be a better setup to this than it just seemed too good a joke to pass up, so I hope Senor Defaya will forgive me the conceit of reinstating his original idea, which seems so apt and such a marvelous joke, it was irresistible.